Hello everybody, this is Kevin. I garden Zone 4B, Central Wisconsin area, and I'm doing a video for 2025, an update what's going on in the garden this year. So follow along and I'll do a tour of my garden for the year. We'll start over on the west side. This kind of area I call my perennial garden. I have some stuff planted in here like Heliospas and some wildflowers, lupins. Here's a couple, well, just a little bit of lupins blooming yet, or just starting to bloom. And then some Heliospas down there and some phlox over there. They're not around. It'll be a while before they start blooming. And over this way, I planted some blackberries, but they didn't do that very good over the winter. I think I lost half the plants. Planted 10 plants, and I think I only got 5 to come back. And I'm just trying to think the name of them. Chester thornless. There's a little bit coming back, and so I put some Heliospas plants in there with it. It's going to be a work in progress if I get blackberries to grow here. We'll work our way over to the, I guess I just call it the annuals garden. Here I have lots of Rudbeckia planted. Go down here on the east side of this area. It's all, well, there's 4 rows of Indian summer, and then I got 1 row of Tithonia, Mexican sunflower. I believe it's called Goldfinger. I'm just going to see what kind of color combinations I get between the two, Rudbeckia and sunflower. And then over this part, I got 3 different varieties: Cherokee Sunset, Prairie Sun, and Sahara. Some were pretty well started at the same time, and some are earlier or later. They're not going to bloom at the same time, but should be close. We're working down our way down to the end here. I added irrigation in here last year. And this early this spring, I dug my lines and got it all buried. Even that area over there, I got irrigation, so things should be more consistent. I should be able to put more water out here, get better blooms and growth. And down at this end, I got some Mexican sunflower, Tithonia, a variety called Torch. These are supposed to grow 6 feet tall or so. And I'm thinking they're starting to take off again. The weather's been cold here. You know, just 2 nights ago, the morning temp was 37 here. So it's not good for getting stuff growing. Then I got some zinnias planted here, and then in this section here is all cosmos, different varieties of cosmos. And it looks like I got it in there pretty thick. So we'll see how that works. Okay, I'm going to venture my way down to the other part of the garden. Okay, get back to the entrance to my main garden area. I got some clematis, 2 on each side, and they seem to be doing pretty good this year. They seem to manage to escape the voles. They like to eat the bottom, and basically that kills the whole plant, and then you have to let them grow again, grow up. We'll work our way around this way. I got some daylilies here, and there's some chives. And then I just planted that yesterday, some leftover plants I had, a geranium and some purple bell vine. I'll just try to give it a shot there. And there's some asters, volunteer Rebecca, and hydrangeas here. Keep moving along here. Some places they have weeds and this trellis here. I built this last year, and I'm not finished yet because I want to build a sidewalk through here, but I haven't gotten around to do that. Only thing I did add was some hanging baskets. I had started some purple bell vines. They were taking off really good, but I'm not familiar with how to do hanging baskets, but I'm giving it a start. And I'm not doing very good with hanging baskets. I can't seem to figure out how to get the correct amount of water. And I got too much water in them. I'm not sure what I got to figure out. Get the right system going. Here I got some more daylilies and blazing stars. And I planted some more daylilies in here. And there's the Heliopsis. And I'm not sure what that plant is, but there's some bee balm here and that sort of stuff, and some alliums here. And then this part here, I planted some dahlias. This year I just stuck them in the ground. I didn't try to wake them up earlier or anything. So they're kind of late bloomers this year. Some are barely coming out, and on the back side there hardly any coming out. So we'll see how it goes. And here I kind of made a low raised bed area. Got some potatoes in here. I think what I'm trying to do here is create an area where I can get rid of my leaf mulch, because I got a lot of leaf mulch. And then I had some extra seed potatoes, and I put them in these pots over here. I'll try to use them up, see how it turns out. These I have to water because I don't have any irrigation on them. And over in this area here is some fall raspberries. The roots are pretty well established, and I'm letting them venture out, and I'm going to let them go to the fence over here, cover up this whole area with fall raspberries. And over in here I got some chili peppers, some Chameo chili peppers on the front side here, and on the back side some Wauhila peppers. I'm going to try to make some different kinds of powders. And this here's some extra tomato plants I have, so I stuck them here at the end of this row here. And then here I got my asparagus right here. We stopped cutting asparagus the other day, just gonna let it go now. I know the asparagus patch is too close to the raspberries, black raspberries and red raspberries, but that's the way it is. I can clean this patch up every spring. I can run a tiller over it, because asparagus roots are deep, and if I do a shallow till, it will clean it up every year, because otherwise you get a lot of raspberry shoots coming up. But yeah, basically this is kind of a wild area for raspberries. Like I said, black and red here. And here is where I collect all my leaf mulch. I generate a lot of leaf mulch, and it's all compacted because I have a lot of oak trees, or a lot of leaves every fall to pick up, and I need to get it all spread out in the garden, because I got just as much to collect next year. As you can see in the distance, I got a lot of oak trees. So it gives me a lot of work to do. I got some red raspberries here. And further down is some blueberries. As far as the main vegetable garden, the part that I till, it's basically a 20 by 85 feet, or for 34 rows in general. I do modify some of the rows, and we'll kind of go through what I got planted here. This first row I got parsnips, and they're slow to come out of the ground. I cleaned them up a little bit, and I see I got parsnips where I want. You know, I got a double row, every one seed every 6 inches or so, and I think I got pretty good coverage there. And then I have 6 rows of more peppers, you know, different varieties: poblanos, guajillo, chili de agua, and a couple more varieties. Idea is I'm going to mix chili powders and dry them, and who knows what. I got more than what I need, where I'm going to use myself. There's some zinnia seeds in there. I can't remember the name, but they're kind of dark pink, reddish colored. Some apple trees. Honeycrisp, I believe that one is. So the peppers are not doing very good because it's been cold. Last week we had 3 nights where the temperature was 37, 35, 36. degrees. Kind of hard on peppers. You don't want to grow in that kind of temperature. So moving on, I got 2 rows of tomatoes. Oh, 1 second, back on the peppers. I got my peppers planted at 24-inch rows, 18-inch spacing in the row, and I think that's going to work because last year I had an 18 by 18 and that was kind of tight to work in. But 24 inches hopefully will give me enough room to go up and down the rows. And then I plan on using those 4-foot stakes for plant supports. The baskets will seem to take up too much space and I won't be able to work around them. So here I got 2 rows of tomatoes, and in between is radishes on the far end and spinach on this side. Usually what happens for me is this stuff will be done and gone in July, and I'll be able to remove all that and put some mulch down and have a working space in between these 2 rows of tomatoes. Otherwise, tomatoes are on 24-inch spacing in a row. And different varieties of tomatoes, but mostly they're medium red tomatoes. The super large ones seem to split and crack, and I just find the medium red ones are more usable, easier to work with, and they're big enough for whatever you want to do. In this row here, next row, is basil and at the far end some parsley. I also had some parsley over in the annuals garden too. I'm always hoping that I could attract some butterfly legs and get some caterpillars on, like the swallowtails. Been able to do it 1 year, but I haven't been able to do it since. Here next is 6 rows of sweet corn. It's an 85-day variety, and I planted it at 4-inch spacing. I'm going to come back in and thin it out to 8-inch spacing because it seems like I always have critters coming in eating on them, and then that way I have extra plants to move around and get them spaced out. And there's something else that's going to add on that, and I can't remember what it was. But anyway, the sweet corn's always a challenge. So 6 rows of sweet corn. It'll give me enough for fresh eating and to the neighbors, and some for freezing. Then I got 1 row of glads here, and these are all mixed variety. So some I bought new, and then some I have a box that, I left them in the fall and storm for during the winter, and then I just plant them again. And this year I just kind of threw them in there. So some are coming up early, some got to find their way up. But usually plants know how to find their way up. So next I got 4 rows of potatoes here. The first 3 here are russets, Silvertons, and then 4th row there is Red Norland and the early potato. The boards are kind of just to walk on to check for potato bugs. It keeps me, prevents compaction, retains soil moisture, and keep the weeds down. So it's kind of my hard mulch. And then this row here, in between of my potatoes, I got 2 rows of melons. I plan to thin it down to 2 or 1 melon per 18 inches, and then put down some leaf mulch to keep the weeds suppressed and keep the soil moisture in there. And typically what I've been doing the last few years is these melons will start vining, and it'll be time to dig up those early potatoes, and that will give me another 2.5 feet for them to vine before they get to the next row of potatoes. So it will give me room for those plants to vine after I dig out these early red potatoes. And that's what this next row is. It's early red potatoes. And then the next row is fingerlings, which are very good. And then the last 2 rows of potatoes are Kennepics. And basically what I do with the Kennepics in russets, I make French fries. So like that, we'll have plenty of French fries. Here's the chives. They're just starting to bloom. And then here's a couple of more apple trees. They're Cortlands. I believe this one here is Honeycrisp. This row here is eggplant. Eggplant doesn't like cold weather. The leaves are all yellow. When I planted them, they were nice and green because I was able to give them fertilizer and stuff. But eventually they'll come around and produce some fruit. And here's peas, shelling peas. One variety is Green Arrow, and I can't remember the other variety's name, but they're from Johnny's. And I'm going to put up another row of, I got some short spans of cattle panel. I'm going to put another row on top of that because I believe the peas will reach the top of that and need a little more to hang on to for vining. Now this row here is onions, Patterson's variety, and I planted those at a 4-inch spacing, a double row. It helps keep the drip line in between. And Patterson's are good storage. I was able to keep those a lot better. And then I got 1 row of green beans. Looks like they've been missing a few because I got rodents and whatnot. They're taking my plants. And I got kind of a rabbit fence up, kind of secondary fence, but you never know. I could come out here one morning and they'll all be gone. Then I got some double row of carrots here. They're not thinned out. I just have to let them grow a little bit bigger and then thin them out to 3-inch spacing. And then this is my double row of beets. It's hard to see anything. And I planted those about the first thing, and they just don't not seem to be growing, and the rodents seem to taking that stuff. So at any rate, over here, I used to have a rose bush there that got froze out. It was a really cold winter last year. It was -20 for several days in a row, and I've lost a lot of roses and some hibiscus too. So this year I was working on my irrigation. I got a line ran over here, a new irrigation zone, and I split my irrigation, so I got some divided up the zone some, so now I got more pressure on this stuff over here, which really helps keeping the water going. And these are watered on a different schedule. So I was talking about my hibiscus. I have like 7 hibiscus here, and not one of them are coming up. So I'm thinking they all got froze off last winter. So this area here is kind of in limbo. Usually I have tulips in here. In the spring, you know, the tulips would bloom, and then hibiscus would take over later in the year and cover up this area. And then I have some alliums, and there's some coneflowers and Rebecca in here that kind of volunteered with, and some Shasta daisy on the backside. So I gotta figure out what I'm gonna do, but most likely I think I'm gonna clean out all this and replant the whole area with tulips, and then come back in the spring and replant hibiscus plants. Probably at 5 or 6 foot spacing this time. Last time originally I'd done it at 4 foot spacing, and they've gone growing so big that they're kind of crowding each other. So I'm going to spread out the spacing a little bit. And move on to the garlic. It's finally coming along. It looks nice and green, and it's getting plenty of water this year because I got my drip lines hooked up this year for it. But they're moving along. They're not like everybody else's you see on YouTube, because ours is slow. Mine was slow to get going this year. Then in here, this area is getting kind of ran over with grasses and stuff. I'm gonna have to spend some time to work on this and reshape the drip lanes and get it more established. But I got some Siberian irises, and this is some German irises that still around. I used to have quite a few here, but those 2 are about the only ones left. And then there's a bunch of coneflowers and asters and weeds and more irises in the back, some peonies and grasses, and 4 hop vines. Hop vines are doing pretty good. They're shooting up almost to the top. The top is almost 18 feet, 17 and a half to 18. And they're going to reach to the top there in a couple of days. Probably by next week they'll be at the top. And I got some rosemary and hibiscus plants, and hydrangeas plants here. And this is some xylem, and I got some phlox in this back one here. In that tub back there, there's some phlox in that one. I use so Pepsi bottles to hold my string line on. They seem to work very good for that. Inexpensive. And then in between here, they're just popping up. I plant their canna lilies. I just have them in this one row, but they'll occupy the space after the potatoes are gone. And they're good. They attract hummingbirds very good because they have a nice red flower on top in later months once it gets in August, September. And then I guess, well, we had to go back here a little bit. I have blueberry plants back here. There's a black raspberry over there with climbing on a plum tree. I got 6 blueberry plants here, which are a very good producer. We get lots of blueberries. I got blueberries left over from last year in the freezer. Then we got a nice big rhubarb section here. 1 crimson red, 2 red New Orleans, and the 4th one is a farmyard variety. Not as red, but still very good. And then 4 more blueberry plants down that way. And they're looking good this year. Eventually, those potato beetles will show up, and I'll have to start walking, checking for those every day. I got one more thing I'm going to show, and that'll be about the end of the video. I planted some echinacea here. I have about 20 plants I started. Cheyenne Spirit is a variety. I started those last winter. I had there was 3 roses in there, and 2 of them froze off, so they didn't come back. So I only got 1 rose that came back. So that's about it for this year, what I got going on in the garden. Hope you let me see if I can turn this around. Yeah, there we go. Had to get in the shade here a little bit. So that's it. Well, I'll try to post one again later when those annuals garden is blooming. See how the Rebecca and Tithonia looks together. That might be interesting. And then in general, how the other stuff is progressing around. Other than that, that's it. We'll see you later.